Chapter 5. Tucker crossed the big gym and glanced around for Kinsey. He didn't see her in the main room, but there were a few doorways leading out of the room. Perhaps she was down one of them. As he headed toward the first doorway, his gaze traveled the faded white walls. The building could definitely use a little TLC. Not only did faded paint cover the walls, but scratches marred the floor. More than that, though, was the ambiance. The place felt sad, like happiness had packed up its bags and left. Tucker shivered and wondered why kids came here at all. Was there really no other place they could afford? He couldn't imagine having to spend time in a place like this. But then again, he'd never had to. Before his mother had died, he'd had her to go home to. And after that, his father's money had paid for sports teams and leagues to keep him busy after school. What did these kids have going for them? Well, they had Shelby and Kinsey. They both seemed nice enough. Maybe they brightened the place up. Tucker found Kinsey hauling a rack of sports equipment out of a supply closet. She was certainly a perk he hadn't expected. When Blaine had said a woman ran the center, Tucker had hoped perhaps she might be easy on the eyes. But while Shelby was pretty, she was also the epitome of uptight. Her hair had been meticulously sprayed into place in a tight bun, all but one tendril that had somehow snuck loose. And she dressed more like an old-time librarian than a manager in her pencil skirt and button-down shirt. There was something about her, though, something that sparked when they shook hands. Kinsey, on the other hand, was bright and cheery and definitely more concerned with her appearance than her boss. "Can I help with that?" He flashed his most disarming smile at her and was pleased when she returned it in kind. "Sure, thanks. Did you get everything settled with Shelby?" "I think so. I'll have to spend some time this weekend figuring out exactly what I'm teaching these kids, but it should be fine." She tilted her head coyly at him. "Somehow, I don't think you'll have any problem coming up with something." "Thanks." He stared at her for a moment before asking the question that had been burning on his mind since the moment he saw her. "I have to ask, what are you doing working in a place like this? It doesn't really seem to suit your..." He paused, trying to think of the appropriate word. "Style. At least, not like it does Shelby's." "No, I'm definitely not like Shelby," Kinsey said with a laugh. Her gaze traveled to the reception area. "But she's my best friend, and she has a heart of gold. When she needed someone to help out at the center, I stepped up. Partly to see her in action, and partly because I think I'm hoping some of her rubs off on me." She wanted to be more like Shelby? Why? Tucker hadn't meant to say the question aloud, but it had slipped out. Kinsey focused her green eyes on him. "Because she's the best person I know. I grew up with money and had anything I wanted, but Shelby?" She shook her head. "Shelby worked for everything she has. She began volunteering in the center when she was in high school because she felt called to. Then she worked here part-time while she attended college. She could be managing any place she wanted. She's that amazing. But she chose to come back here, to give back to her community. I only hope that one day I'm as selfless as she is." Tucker looked back toward the reception area with new eyes. Perhaps he'd been too hard on Shelby. What was it Blaine had said? That he needed to see how the less fortunate lived? Maybe Blaine hadn't been as privileged as Tucker thought. Maybe he was someone like Shelby who'd known hard times and come out better on the other side because of them. Guilt the size of Texas settled on Tucker's shoulders. He'd been throwing himself a grand pity party over having to do a little community service, while Shelby willingly gave of herself to help those around her. "You sure were talking to Tucker for quite a while." Shelby flashed Kinsey a look out of the corner of her eye as she shut down the computer for the night. Tucker had stayed for an hour talking with Kinsey after he finished with Shelby, but at least he had been nice to the kids. Or she figured he had because no one had complained. Kinsey shrugged. "I guess. We mainly talked about you, though." "Me?" Shelby nearly choked on the word. "Why would you talk about me? What did you say?" Kinsey rolled her eyes. "Relax. I simply told him how amazing you were and how you give your all for these kids." Kinsey never ceased to amaze Shelby. One minute, she was leaving Shelby hanging by taking an extended lunch break to doll up for some guy, and the next, she was singing her praises to the very same man. "Well, thanks, but I doubt he cares about stuff like that. He said he was here because the team assigned him community service. I think he'd rather be anywhere else, and if I had any other way to bring money in, I might just let him go. She grabbed her coat and purse and flicked off the lights. Don't be too hard on him, Kinsey said. I get the feeling he's a good guy underneath. He just hasn't figured out how to show it yet. I hope he figures it out by Monday, or his surly attitude might send the last few clients we have running for the hills. Kinsey linked her arm through Shelby's as they walked toward the front door. First of all, he was great with the kids. I saw no surly attitude. Second, what is it you always tell me about worrying? That you don't do it enough? Shelby asked. No, that you can't change tomorrow by worrying about it. God's got this, right? Shelby paused and stared at her friend. She had always said that, at least until she became the manager, and her worry load had tripled. Perhaps it was time to take her own advice and turn those worries over to God. Heaven knew she hadn't been doing a great job trying to take care of things on her own. Perhaps this was God's way of showing her that. You're right. God's got this, and He will provide one way or another. Kinsey's face broke into a wide smile. That's my girl. Now, how about we grab dinner out somewhere? It's so late that I'm sure you've missed the family dinner. Shelby glanced at her watch. Kinsey was right. Her mother always served dinner promptly at 7, so no one could use the excuse that they didn't know what time it might be. Normally, Shelby was closed up by 6:45 and, thanks to the close proximity to her parents' house, managed to pull into the driveway 10 minutes later. Tonight, closing had run long. It was already past 7:30, and her stomach groaned in protest at the extra wait time. Okay, what do you have in mind? Just a little Thai place I've been meaning to try for ages. We'll take my car, and I'll bring you back here for yours later. Deal? Kinsey wiggled her eyebrows the way she had in college when she'd wanted to get Shelby to lighten up and give up studying for the night. It was a comical effect on her flawless face, but one that always managed to elicit a smile from Shelby. Shelby rolled her eyes, but just like in college, she couldn't keep her mouth from twitching into a smile. She locked the front door and then faced Kinsey. Fine. Yes, we're gonna have so much fun. Shelby wasn't sure about that. But as she followed Kinsey to her car, she couldn't deny that she felt a little lighter, like maybe everything would turn out all right.